guys? It's episode 57 of Inner Demons, and you guys know the dealio. I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out, you guys. Like always, like I do in every episode, I listened to episode 56, and I caught myself back up, so I'm not repeating the whole episode. So, like I told you guys, I got into the shootout, and I took a couple-week reprieve. I took Vicky out to Ukiah, and, we just stayed out there for about 3 weeks. I don't remember exactly how long. I know it was about 2 or 3 weeks, but it was perfect timing. And like I said, it was good to get her away from San Jose. A lot was going on, and it was just a good time for her to get away and kind of decompress. Her dad was ailing, and it was just good to see her back around her family again. Anyways, even though I was kind of coordinating everything through Pony, through the phone, I wanted to get back out there to San Jose. I'm hands-on, and I trusted that, he was able to do everything that was going on at that time. He was basically able to handle everything that was going on. But, ultimately, at the end of the day, when you're running a regiment out there, you are responsible for everything that happens out there. Being out there, I had to, basically I had to keep the books up. I had to maintain the communication with leadership. Pony at that time, I believe I was only gone for 3 weeks. So I think he sent a visitor up one time while I was gone. And, that information, as soon as the visitor came out and she gave that to Pony, he screenshotted it, sent it to me, and I answered it, responded. And that's basically how everything was being done at that time. Now, like I said, I wanted to hurry up and get back out there to San Jose and get everything situated, get back in the mix, because there was a lot of other things that were going on besides just the shooting and, everything dealing with that whole situation. There was a lot of other things going on with Salinas, with Watsonville, with San Francisco. Told you guys there was just a lot going on at that time. Now, at some point, again, like I said in the last episode, Roger had reached out to me, the tattoo guy. And that's how he was known across San Jose. When the homies would mention Roger, a lot of them would just refer to him as the tattoo guy. That's how everybody referred to him. And I'm telling you, he used to do a lot of work on a lot of homeboys out there. Again, I know I said this in the last episode, but even when later on, when everything would happen, and Roger would end up, I think he got bailed out. I don't either got bailed out or they released him. Everybody knew out there on the streets what was going on. When my case dropped, everybody and their mother knew about it out there in San Jose. It was a huge thing. Boxer got cracked. His whole regiment got snatched up, and, they were still out there kicking in doors for a while. The case just continued to snowball. Literally, I was in the county picking up cases. The phone was the worst thing. Talking on that phone. People were getting indicted. People were getting pulled in. So, I had to hurry up and get back out there to San Jose and just get back to what I was doing. So at some point, again, Roger reached out to me, the tattoo guy. And, he basically let me know that he was moving out. He was getting a bigger spot, and that he knew I was looking for a place, and he basically told me, look, if you want this spot, it's yours. I want to say, the house was a 2-bedroom house. And I want to say Roger had like an older son or a daughter. And then I believe he had 2 kids that were like in between 8 and 12 years old. So that was a 2-bedroom house. So he wanted to probably get a 3 or 4-bedroom house, which is understandable. But that place that he was staying at was perfect for me. So at some point, I ended up going back to San Jose. After we stayed out there for a couple of weeks, I took Vicky back. And within a day, I was moved into that house on the east side of San Jose, Beecher Court. I called a couple of homies up, the homies that moved. I want to say John Santa Ana, the older Cat Pony's uncle-in-law or whatever. However, well, he's related through Pony's wife. So I want to say he called him his uncle. But I want to say John Santa Ana was one of them, and one of his nephews and somebody else were the ones that moved the apartment moved everything out of my apartment after the shooting and put it into storage. So obviously they were the ones to take me to the storage unit, and we moved everything back out within a day. Within that day, at the end of the day, the house was fully furnished. All the furniture was in, everything was set up, it was ready to go. It was a cool spot. I liked the spot. And even though it was on the east side, it was close to King and Story. King and Story were literally like right down the street. It was a cool spot. It was tucked away. It was on a little cul-de-sac, like a little small court. So, like I said, the time between the time that I was away, I want to say it was 3 weeks. I think Pony had sent a visitor to go see Corny, I think one time while I was gone. Because we used to send him out there like once every 2 weeks, or we would send a visitor. No, you know what? I take that back. We were sending somebody up there once a week. So I want to say though that the visitor went twice while I was out there in Ukiah. And again, you know, when they would send a message out, Pony would get it from the visitor, screenshot it, send it to me, and I would answer it. So one of the first things I did once I got back out there was to send our visitor back up there. Now, I don't remember what the issue was, but I remember that for whatever reason, they wanted us to get a different visitor. Now, they were real selective about who came up to visit them. They wanted females, obviously females, but they wanted females that were real low key, that didn't, you know, they didn't want a homegirl that, you know, had Norte tattooed over her eyebrow and hood rat on her neck or something like that. I'm kidding. But, you know, they didn't want somebody that would obviously attract the wrong kind of attention. They wanted somebody that looked somewhat just like a regular female, low key. So I had to find another visitor. And, you know, I remember during that time I was stressed out because there wasn't too many people that I knew and that I trusted. So I kind of put that on Pony because he knew a lot more people out there in San Jose. But I remember there was a, you know, a brief time when Vicky, she understood what I was going through. She understood I was trying to find a visitor. And, you know, it was the one time that I broke my policy because she offered. She's like, you know what? She was like, I know you don't got a visitor. She was like, I'll go up and see, you know, whoever you want me to see. And I was like, nah, you're not doing that. You know, I've always been real, you know, when it comes to involving my family or females that I've been involved with, significant others, wives, girlfriends, whatever, I've never allowed them to get involved in that part of my lifestyle. And that was for their own protection because I understood, you know, what could happen. You involve them and you're putting them in harm's way, straight up. A number of different scenarios can play out. Somebody could think that, you know, she's cooperating, or information that she's facilitating might get leaked out, and next thing you know, they're thinking that it's her, or just a number of different things. You know, her having knowledge of certain things. So I was always real adamant about keeping her out of my business or that part of my life. However, this one time I really needed somebody, and Pony was having a hard time finding another visitor, somebody that he really trusted, somebody that kind of fit the role for what, you know, what they were looking for. So, like I said, I broke my policy. I had Vicky go up and visit Pinky. That was who they wanted pulled out that week. It was Pinky. It used to alternate between Pinky, Corny, Tibbs, and Skip. And that week it was Pinky. So, you know, I drove her up there, and I remember at that time they were in Santa Rita. And rest in peace, Peggy. I'm not going to talk bad about her because obviously now she's deceased. And, you know, I know in the past I used to say things about her, and there was phrases that I used to drop, but it was all in fun. You know, I never had nothing personal against Peggy besides the things that she allowed Lencho to influence her into. You know, the things that happened later on that you guys will hear about, because I will go into detail. But I remember that one week that Peggy was going up to see Skip. So she called me and she was like, hey, Skip told me that you're bringing somebody up this week. So why don't we just meet right there in front of Santa Rita? And I was like, yeah, Vicky's going to go. And she was like, what? You serious? She's like, you're going to actually send her in? Because she knew how I felt about it before it had came up. And I was like, no, I'm not. She's not going to see nobody. So she was like, cool, so we drove to Santa Rita, and I remember we ended up meeting up right there in the parking lot. And, Peggy was Peggy. She had a lot to talk about, and I just remember that day. I remember it vividly like it was yesterday. But anyways, at some point, it was time for them to go in and visit. They go in. And from the day that I allowed her to go up there and see Pinky, I regretted it. But something that I did nonetheless. She went in, she visited with Pinky, she did what she was supposed to do. I had some messages going back to them. I told her exactly how to do it. Just they didn't have cameras in there. I didn't understand why they would never put cameras in there. These guys were, they knew that they were NF leadership. They knew that they had a lot of influence, and I'm pretty sure they knew that the figureheads throughout Northern California were all sending somebody up there to see these guys, and that a lot of information was going in and out of that visiting room, but they never put cameras in, at least in the beginning. So they were able to go in there and just slap up, the kite right there up on the window, and they'd read it. And then, I'd send them in there with a small pencil, and then they would write back responses or things that were coming back out. So she went in there, she visited with Pinky, she came back out, she facilitated the messages that I had her go in there with. He sent her out with some stuff. But, when she came out and we got back on the freeway after, I said my goodbyes to Peggy, we headed back to where we were living in San Jose. And I remember, the conversation I had with Vicky on the way on the freeway. She was like, you know what, Pinky she was fascinated by the dude. The way he carried himself, his age. Pinky at that time was healthy, and his demeanor, and she had heard a lot about him. So, these dudes are talked about like they're legends, they're gods. And for her to go in there, I'm sure there was some level of intimidation going in there, seeing somebody that she had heard about, somebody that her husband, had talked a lot about. Oh, this is him. This is the guy that, one of the guys that they're always talking about. But it was interesting because she had a conversation with Pinky, and Pinky had told her, you know what, after meeting her and talking to her, he was like, tell B I don't want you to come up here no more, and understand that it's got nothing to do with you. It's not that I don't trust you. It's not that, there's anything wrong with you. It's just, you're the type of girl that doesn't belong in this lifestyle. He liked her. He was looking out for her. He was like, just tell B to find somebody else. It really had nothing to do with trust or nothing like that, because, that was another thing. If we sent a visitor up there and there was any kind of suspicion, or if they rubbed them the wrong way, they were like, hey, don't send her up here no more. But it wasn't that type of situation. It was more like, hey, she's a good girl, man. And, they talked about her lupus, and I guess Pinky asked her a lot of personal questions about her life and things that she had been through. And that's how she came out. She came away from that visit. Like, he said, he doesn't want me to be involved in this stuff no more. And that, you're a lucky guy, and, to take care of me and all that good stuff. But it was cool, So anyways, over the course of the next month, I continued to work with Julio. And the more I worked with him, the more he felt comfortable with the amount of weight that he would give me. At first, it was like a pound. That turned into 2 or 3 pounds. Then it was 5. Then it was 10. The thing about it was I never came short to this guy. Never came short. Never, there was never a situation where I was like, you know what, I couldn't come up with the other 3 or 4,000. I'll get you on the next one. Nothing like that. Julio understood the situation. He understood that I was a leader out there, that I had influence, and that, we were about our business. He liked that. We weren't just like some street gang out there that was, doing business on a street level. We were doing some serious business. And, at that point, we were moving around 30 pounds just with my regiment alone, 30 pounds a month. On top of that, we were networking with Watsonville, we were networking with Salinas and San Francisco. So, it was the perfect situation for him. And he started to come around a lot more. He would come over to the limo shop. He would just pop up and, just kick it over there, have a couple beers or whatever, and then he'd take off. Every now and again, he would come to my house over there on Beecher Court, and he would just come over there and we drink a couple beers and just kick back. So, we started to develop somewhat of a personal relationship on the side, which was good. There was nothing about the dude that, aside from the dope, we had nothing in common. We had nothing in common. He was one of them high roller type of paisas with that wore them, cowboy boots and all that kind of stuff. And he spoke good English. He spoke fluent English, but we just had nothing in common. Just believe what I'm telling you. So anyways, as time goes on, I'm still continuing to recruit new members into the regiment. The books were never closed. So as long as I was out there functioning, as long as I was out there running a regiment, other individuals that were getting out, they were plugging in, they were tapping in. There were some guys that, they were coming straight from prison. Hey, they told me to get in touch with you. I want to work, I want to function. So, Soldier Boy ended up coming on, Jeffrey Orozco. He was another one. I believe I mentioned him in one of the past episodes. Again, I had Turtle and Baby G, Eric Zarate. Then you had Willow, and then you had Sykes and his brother Angel. You had guys that ended up getting caught up. Model. Latigo from Gilroy was never really technically in the regiment. He was just associate. He was a strong associate. There was a couple other individuals. I'm not going to mention them because they don't want to be mentioned by name. There were around 20 individuals that were actually plugged in and functioning in the regiment. Gato Marquez was another one. There's a couple others, but like I said, they don't want to be mentioned. So anyways, there was also, so we had associates, strong associates, and that would be like individuals like John Santa Ana, Roger, the tattoo guy, again, Latigo. Sykes had an old lady, his old lady, Juanita, she would end up getting indicted with us. She was somebody that kind of worked behind the scenes with the regiment on some level. She was tapped in with Corny. They knew, Corny was, I believe they were corresponding or something like that. So, she was considered a strong associate. Now, she had a friend, and her friend was another strong associate, and she was a well-known female out there in San Jose, and they called her Thug Love. Janelle, I forget her last name, Hurtado or something like that. But, she was, and I say this with an abundance of respect, she was the type of female that she really liked the homeboys. The homeboys used to refer to her using other terms. I'm not going to repeat them, but it's like, it's like this. If you had a little bit of clout, if you had a little bit of influence, if you were clicked up and she knew it, she liked you. And basically, she would gravitate towards those types of individuals. Straight up, I'm just going to say that. But, a lot of homeboys knew her throughout San Jose. A lot of homeboys knew Thug Love, and, even Corny and those guys, they took a liking to her. She had that look, she had that look that a lot of homies go for. And, she fit her name too, Thug Love. She had tattoos on her neck. She had tattoos all over her arms. And she just had that homegirl type of look. But she was somebody I respected. She's somebody that worked close with the regiment. And unfortunately, she would also end up getting indicted with us later. So once I moved into the Beecher courthouse that Roger hooked me up with, I started to work a lot closer with him and Latigo from Gilroy. Latigo and Roger, obviously they were from the same hood. They're both from Gilroy, but because Roger hooked me up with the pad, it kind of just brought us closer. I already had a relationship with him as far as like the tattoo stuff. I wanted him to do a lot of work on me, and he was the type of guy, straight family man. So Roger, he understood the situation. Obviously, he understood that I was the RC, that I was the leader out there, and the way that he would deal our interaction, you could tell that he went out of his way to look out for me or give me, preferential treatment, whatever you want to call it. He, as far as doing work, he wouldn't charge, or he wouldn't charge that much. He wasn't, I'm not saying the dude was swinging, but he was just giving me a lot of respect because of who I was. Anyways, Latigo was somebody, like I told you guys before, he's somebody that I knew from prison. I'd done time with him throughout the years. I always ran into him on the 6-yard when the 6-yard was in the back of East Block back in the day. So as far as Latigo, I told you guys before that he was somebody that I knew from prison. I met him back in the early 90s. We done a lot of time together. Seemed like we always used to run into each other back in the early to mid 90s on the 6-yard, the infamous 6-yard, when the 6-yard was behind East Block, back there where Death Row was. I was back there with them on several occasions, and he's somebody that I took a liking to. He's somebody that I took a liking to. We were both hermanos, and, at that time I was a lot younger, but, being out there on the streets and being that, him and Roger were close, I started to work with him. Again, he didn't want to plug into the regiment. He didn't want to make a commitment, but he was willing to assist. So he started slinging a little bit of dope on the side. He would come over and get a couple ounces, and I'd always meet him down the street at this one spot. If I didn't meet him, it was like right off of Aborn. There's like a little plaza right there, and there's a restaurant. I don't know if it's a Carl's Jr. or a Jack in the Box or a Burger King. Whatever it was, that place right there, that area where we met Latigo, would become significant. So just remember that. Later on, you guys will understand what I'm telling you. Anytime Latigo wanted to pick up some weight, whether it was a couple ounces or some dope, whatever, some clavo, we would meet him at that same spot, that little plaza right off of Aborn. And again, I don't know what restaurant is right there, but that restaurant would become significant later on. Now, I never used to bring anybody to the house. There was only a few individuals that I ever brought to my house. Again, I always looked at it as like, this is where I lay my head. There's only a couple of individuals that I would welcome over there, and they were all part of the regiment. Latigo wasn't one of them. I could tell just, the first couple of times that I had met up with Latigo out there, I could tell he was using, which was his business. It was his business. There's a lot of guys out there that are using dope, but they're still, they're still somewhat reliable, at least, because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to fall into bad standings. They're not gonna try to burn you. They're not gonna try to, pull no scandalous shit, at least for the most part, because they understand that once they do that, their career is over. And I knew Latigo was somebody that had been around for a while. So when I first seen him, all the signs were there. His mouth was dry, cracked lips. He just had that funny movement that I seen it a mile away. But like I said, it was his business. And how could I look at him in any kind of different way? I'd be a hypocrite. I was still struggling with my addiction. That shootout, prior to that shootout, I had already started to use before that. But you had the shootout, then you had the tracking devices, you had guys walking around with clipboards. I didn't know if I was running. So the stress was on. All those were triggers for me. And that's why I reverted back to that and I started using again. And as far as people knowing what I was doing, I was a straight chameleon with that. Nobody knew what I was doing. I hid it very well. I wasn't out there sweating. I wasn't out there, wearing dirty clothes, holes in my shoe. There was no outward signs. I was one of those individuals that could function. I could get a job. What do they call them? They call them functioning addicts. That's what I was doing. That's what I was out there. But it was just, I was functioning in a regiment, not in society or not in a job environment. Anyway, so during the same time, there's some other things that started to happen that I'm not going to say this was the first time that. So aside from everything that was going on with, me moving the house, me dealing with Roger and Latigo and some of the other people that I was dealing with out there, we're networking, we're pushing the limousine business still. There's some other things that started happening that I'm not going to say this was the first time that my confidence or, my faith in the organization was shaken. But this was one of the times that really made me sit back and just evaluate everything that was going on. I wasn't thinking about dropping out. I wasn't thinking about, pulling a move like Jomo from Salinas did, contacting the feds and telling them, hey, look, wire me up. Let me, put me in witness protection somewhere and let me go on with my life. It was nothing like that. But there was a lot of things that were going on within the organization, within leadership, that made me question the direction that they were going in. Because you guys got to understand, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm not trying to decorate my own Christmas tree, nothing like that. But in all actuality, I was doing a lot out there. Prior to going out to San Jose, all the way back to Salinas, me and Smokey were doing a lot at that time. We were basically doing everything that leadership wanted us to do out there throughout Northern California, through the Valley, all the way up to Sacramento, the Bay Area. There was a lot of things that they asked us to do, coordinate, visiting, helping these other regiments get up on track, going out just on they would send us on assignments, special assignments, whatever you want to call them, things that they wanted us to look into or things that they wanted handled. Trust me, we took on a lot out there and we were the go-to guys at that time in Salinas. Now, obviously, Smokey was gone by this time. So I continued to do what I was doing, but without Smokey. At that time, I want to say this is when they moved Pinky, Corny, all those guys that were involved in Operation Black Widow. They moved them from Santa Rita to the Glen Dyer Federal Detention Center in downtown Oakland. They moved them over there. Now, when they moved them over there still were no cameras in the visiting room, but it was a different kind of security over there. And they started to get a lot of attention because of who they were and because of their case. These guys started to pay attention. These were the feds. Santa Rita was a little different. So they wanted to scale back on a lot of the visitors that were coming up. You had visitors from all these different regiments in Northern California: Watsonville, Salinas, Sacramento, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to consolidate all the information that was coming in from all the different regiments. So what they wanted to do is, instead of having all these different visitors come up, they just wanted like one visitor to come up, and that was going to be through me. That was going to be my visitor. So what they were going to do is they were going to appoint me as some kind of street liaison commander or something. That it was there was a title that they were thinking about, and they had broke it all down. That they wanted to consolidate all the visiting, all the information that was coming in. They wanted us to basically meet up with these individuals from all these different regiments, get all that information, consolidate it, and then send my visitor up there. So that was a lot of responsibility. That was a position that they were going to entrust me with, and they did. So during the next couple of weeks, these guys were being informed that from now on, instead of sending your visitor up, this is how you guys are going to start to facilitate all that information, the communication. This is how it's going to go. And it was obviously going to go through, I was going to have my visitor go out and meet their visitors and take care of all that. I wasn't going to be doing all that driving out to Watsonville, driving out to Salinas. I was going to have my visitor take care of it. Like I said, she was a go-getter. She was cool. Most of the time, she's out there riding around in stolies. I used to have to tell her, hey, you need to kick back. You got a bigger role than what you're doing out here on the streets. If we lose you, it's going to cause a domino effect. I can't lose you. So driving around in stolen cars, you can't be doing that. You know what I mean? I couldn't dictate nothing to her because she didn't have to listen to me. But she had a lot of respect for us and what we were doing, and she understood. So just telling her something like that, she was like, I got you. I understand. She was a cool homegirl. Anyways, so during those couple weeks, I want to say during those 2 or 3 weeks while all that was going on, everybody, that was all getting situated. She was making contact with people that she was going to meet out there, and it was all getting ironed out. It was a major thing that was happening at that time, but something else, that wasn't what had shook my confidence. What shook my confidence is I'm gonna speak about this, and I'm gonna speak about it in general terms. So I got a phone call from a homeboy in Salinas, somebody that I have a lot of respect for, somebody that I've worked with in the past. And I'm not gonna say who it is because I have a lot of respect for him, and I'm just not gonna put him out there. But he calls me up and he's like, he's like, I need to come out there and see you. I got something important that I need to talk to you about, and I can't talk about it on the phone. So, when are you available, bro? And, I was like, hey, you come out anytime, but come out tomorrow. Whenever you want to come out here, it's all good, man. And I made arrangements for him to come out and meet me at the limo shop because that's where I was at that time. I was, during that time period, I was involved with the limo business, trying to get it up off the ground, trying to get the drivers, trying to get all that stuff situated, trying to figure out the books, how I was going to run it to where I was, cleaning the money and doing all that stuff. So I was at the shop a lot. Plus, I was running around with Jose to places like I told you guys before, IKEA, putting the furniture in, and we were doing the final touches on our office and all that good stuff. So at one point, the homie came down from Salinas, and I remember the day like it was yesterday. And, he got out and we walked. We walked a little bit of ways from, down the place where I was at. It's like an industrial district. There's a lot of other shops over there, and these are like cubicles, kind of like they're those manufactured type of places that I usually see in industrial type of districts. There's a lot of different shops there. So I remember we walked down like the street where the business was at, and we started talking about, the reasons why he came out and what he wanted to talk about. And in general terms, basically there was two things that he needed to put in my ear. And one of them was there was a target that had to be hit in Salinas. And all I knew and all I was told and all I'm really gonna say about it was that It was an individual that was driving a tow truck. I don't know what the association was, or I knew what it was behind. This individual had basically was giving up information, and they knew about it. How is not important, but they found out about it. And, the brother came down to talk to me about it because, he was like, hey, we got a line on this dude, and, they want him dealt with, and they want me and you to do it. And when he said that, it's like, let me make it clear. I don't have no problem with putting in work. I've done it before. But it didn't make sense to me. And I didn't question it. I questioned it in my mind, but I didn't question it with the brother. I was like, okay, so when is this supposed to happen, bro? And he told me, it was like, you know what? I'm still trying to fine tune some things. I'm still doing my recon. There's some things I need to take care of before I'll be ready. But when it's go time, I'm going to hit you, bro. And then we can take it from there. You can come out the same day and drive back, however you want to do it. But, give me a couple weeks to just iron some other things out. And when it's all ready to go, I'll get at you. So that was one situation right there. The other situation is, and it had nothing to do with him. He didn't come and tell me about this. I ended up finding out through the visitor. So I get a message, and it's obviously it's coded up. We had a code. I still remember some of the code words that we were actually using, but we had a code, and the message, when it came out, it was somewhat of a long message, a lot longer than I would normally get. So I knew it must have been about something important. So when it was, as I started to decipher the code, I read it, and I couldn't believe, what I was reading. It just didn't make sense to me. I didn't see no purpose in it. I didn't see why they would want to pursue something like this. And again, it made me question the direction that the organization was going in. Why would you waste good brothers on something like this? Basically what it was is, so for those of you guys that are familiar with Operation Black Widow, part of that case, a big part of that case involved Happy from Lodi. And I'm not talking about nothing that isn't already out there. So basically, Happy from Lodi wanted to whack two prosecutors, Katie and Charles Castanedas, out of San Jose, two acting prosecutors that were actually husband and wife. He wanted to hit these prosecutors because they had a history of prosecuting Pinky and other leadership. And it had got to the point to where it started to look personal. So Happy wanted to whack these two prosecutors as a way of, make this sacrifice for Pinky. Take these prosecutors out. And, this was a sacrifice that, again, he was making it for Pinky and for leadership, to let it be known that it doesn't matter who it is. If you come after us and you make it personal, we're going to come after you. Even somebody that's part of law enforcement, that's part of the law enforcement community. Now, that in itself right there didn't make sense to me, because I understand that certain things do happen. Sometimes you'll get a bad cop that will take something. He'll either start creating some serious waves, or he'll start to really, interrupt our daily activities, whatever it is. Sometimes they not only make it personal, but it really starts to interfere with business, and, it's somebody that's in the way. And when it becomes personal and they cross that line, then they become a target too. That's just the way it is. Cops and law enforcement, they're not exempt from, being hit. It's the same with the Mexican mafia. They don't make a habit out of going after law enforcement if they don't need to. But if there's somebody that, again, that they cross a line, and the disrespect or the things that they start doing is something that we just can't tolerate, then I can understand those situations right there. I can understand that they might go to those extremes, because once you hit somebody that's part of the law enforcement community, a prosecutor, a cop, a judge, once you do that, it's like smacking a beehive. The streets are going to get lit up. It's going to affect our business because everybody's going to have to take a step back. The streets are going to be hot. And they're going to start kicking in doors. They're going to start coming after people. They're not just going to accept that. There's going to be some pushback, some get back. They're going to run it back straight up. So I understand that sometimes situations like that have to happen, but it has to be a damn good situation, not just because somebody felt like somebody was, making it personal as far as prosecute. Hey, that's what they do. They're prosecutors. If they want to keep coming at you and keep prosecuting, that's what they're going to do. But why would you go after, a prosecutor? And what do you think is going to happen when we do that? So anyways, that's what it was. Happy obviously didn't get to fulfill, that assignment that he wanted to give back to the organization. He ended up getting caught up. This was a conversation that he had between him and Lizard. At the time, Lizard was already a federal informant. He was already working with the government. He was the FBI's main informant on Operation Black Widow. And he was active out there in the streets. He's the one that got everybody caught up. So when he had this conversation with Lizard, he presented it to Lizard, because you can't just go do something like that without taking it to leadership. He had an idea, this great idea about whacking these two prosecutors, and he takes it to Lizard, who obviously is going to tell him that can't happen because he's working with the feds. They're probably in the next room when they were having this conversation. So he brings it to Lizard. Lizard tells him, we're not doing that. We're not going to have that conversation. We're not going to talk about it. I remember that. It was part of, I think I read some of the transcripts, that part of the case later on. But that's what Lizard told him. And his handlers had told him to make sure that whenever it came to violence, that he was to always tell him, whoever it was, that violence ain't the way right now. Because of the case, we're going to scale back on all that. And any situation where there was somebody asking about whacking somebody or hurting somebody, Lizard was supposed to diffuse that situation. So that's what he did. However, I would get the honors of getting past that torch later on. And again, I'll be honest with you guys, when this bomb got dropped on me, I had to think about it. I had to think about the repercussions. I had to think about all the different scenarios. Obviously, if I was being asked to do something like this, if I was being given a directive, if this was an assignment that I was being given, it wasn't debatable. It wasn't something that I could question. This was something that I would have to partake in. I was either going to do it or my career was going to be over. Simple as that. Basically because, this was a big undertaking right here. And because it was going to affect my life, because it was going to affect my relationship with Vicky, obviously, I thought about the repercussions. I thought about the different scenarios, the possibilities. I sat her down and I talked to her about it. Something else that I never really done out there before. It's another policy that I broke. I would never talk to her about organization business. They call it pillow talk. And again, this was for her own best interest. It wasn't because I didn't trust her. So this was a situation where I was either going to have to fulfill those objectives or I was going to have to ride off into the sunset and never be seen or heard from again. Those were the only two possibilities. So I sat her down and I told her, look, this is what's up. This is what I'm being asked to do. And you know how I feel about, my commitment to the organization. We talked about this in the very beginning when we got together, and I told you that there's certain things I don't compromise. And this is a lifestyle I committed myself to years ago. Regardless to whether I feel like some things are right or wrong, I'm writing this out. And, I'm going to have to involve myself. I'm trying to buy time right now. And I really was. I was trying to buy time and just push it off and hope that maybe they would change their mind. A kite back in with the visitor, asking them like, hey, does this need to be done? Or why are you guys doing this? I never did that. I never brought it up. That's just the way that I've been taught. You never question nothing. You never second guess somebody. You never throw your 2 cents in until it's done. Once it's done, then you can talk about it. So I let it ride. And as far as I was concerned, at least with her, I was either going to have to get involved at some point or disappear. And I couldn't see myself disappearing. I just couldn't. I couldn't see myself just one day getting up and saying, all right, let's go. Let's get up out of here and let's go. I'll be honest with you guys. It crossed my mind. It did cross my mind. But I don't know if I would have ever been able to do it. Here I was out there in the streets. Why? This is the part that I didn't understand. When it came to situations like this, I never questioned any directive that was ever given to me. And I don't have problems with putting in work. But what I couldn't understand was I was a regimental commander. So with me being the regimental commander, okay, obviously I go off to do this. I whack them. I end up getting busted at some point. They're going to have to do a lot of different, they're going to have to scramble around and fix a lot of things out there. And they're going to have to find somebody else to carry the kind of weight that I was carrying out there. And I'm not saying that like I was just this guy that was just carrying all the whole organization. It's not like that. But if you guys were just a little part of my life out there, you would understand what I'm telling you. I took on a lot of responsibility out there. I did a lot of things that they wanted me to do. My whole existence out there evolved around the organization. Literally, my life evolved around doing what they wanted done, doing what was in the best interest of the organization. That's all I did. Every aspect, every corner, every part of my life was some kind of way connected to the organization. I didn't travel. I didn't, go on vacation. I didn't do nothing like that. I ran the streets for the NF. I generated money for the NF. It was a full-time job. So, again, the thing that I couldn't understand is why wouldn't they have somebody else that didn't have that kind of responsibility to take care of that? If it was really that important. Again, I don't even think that they should have even did that, because who knows what would have happened once they, if that would have went through. You guys just think about it. What do you think law enforcement would have done out there? They would have flooded the area. San Jose would have been flooded with feds, with local and state cops, and they would have been kicking in doors everywhere. Every bald-headed gang member, Mexican out there, they would have been all over the streets out there. We wouldn't have been able to do nothing. Everything would have had to been shut down. The feds would have been everywhere. They would have been all in the mix. I think these guys don't understand that. Again, a lot of these guys have been down since the 70s. Some of them even the early and mid 80s. And they have this mindset of what the streets are like, and it's based off of what it was when they left, not what it is now today. They don't understand the kind of technology and the kind of, how advanced law enforcement has come out there. You're not just going to go whack somebody like that and get away with it. That's a one and done type of thing. I go and whack them, I'm done. At some point, somehow, some way, whether it's a camera, somebody else finding out about it, I brag or talk about it, or somebody, eventually I'm gonna get caught. You're not gonna get away with that. You'd be a bad dude if you were to get away with something like that. So when I thought about all these things, that's pretty much how I was looking at it. It was like, okay, they're basically sacrificing me, So, it shook my faith, it shook my confidence because I didn't understand the direction that they were going in. We're out there trying to build the organization up and become self-solvent and self-supporting, and we're out there working. We're out there making real sacrifices, and so that's what I was struggling with, was that part right there. We're out there trying to make the organization stronger. We're trying to build. We're obviously trying to generate money. We're doing all these things, and then you want to send somebody on an assignment like this. How is that going to benefit us? For a minute or two, you might feel a little bit of gratification for these two being gone because, yeah, they convicted a couple of the brothers a couple of times. They indicted some of the brothers a couple of times. I understand that part of it. But again, that's what they do. That comes with the territory. We can't take that personal. And is that a smart thing to do? Is that what we're gonna do now? We're just gonna throw people we're just gonna sacrifice people like that, because that's what it was. Anyways, I think this is probably a good time to cut this right here. There's obviously a lot going on with this situation right here, with the other situation that's developing in Salinas, and just with everything going on back in San Jose at this point. This is when things are really starting to heat up. By now, law enforcement has got me under surveillance. I didn't know it at the time. I would find out later, but they were on to me, obviously. I had the counterfeiting operation that I was doing at one point. That was a close call. Then later on, I would end up, finding out I had a GPS tracking device under my car. Then I got into a shootout. So the walls are starting to close in on me. And all this going on again still, I'm falling deeper and deeper into my addiction. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it right here. And I'll be back with episode 58, probably tomorrow. Again, I want to make sure that I stretch this out as much as I can and get as deep into these things as I can. I'll talk about, so, I'm going to say this just so that when I do episode 59, I remember this. But around this same time right now, when all this is going on, this is about the time when I would come into possession of a disc. It was 1,956 pages of court-sealed documents that were part of Operation Black Widow. This disc was smuggled out of a federal courthouse, and it was given to me because leadership wanted me to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and look at everything that was going on behind the scenes. A lot of the stuff that you didn't see in the newspapers, a lot of the information that only we obviously knew about, and the courts. Debriefing reports. I want to say they're called FBI 402s, I think. I'm not positive, but this is it's similar to a debrief. Then you had memorandums that came out of Corcoran, from SSU, memorandums that came out of Pelican Bay. There was active witness lists. There was a wealth of information that was on there. Later on, when they would raid my house and they found out that I was in possession of this disc, the feds were like, where did he get this? This right here, it ended up just turning the case into a bigger case, because this was court-sealed information that got leaked out. So this was huge to them when they found out that I had that disc, and they went through it. They're like, damn, this is court-sealed documents right here. This is stuff we haven't even seen. Only the judges and the district attorney see this kind of stuff. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and cut it right there, you guys. I'm not going to commit to it and say that tomorrow I'm going to do another Inner Demons. It might be a war story. I don't know. I have a Q&A that I'm trying to get out to you guys as well. So we'll see. But either way, I'm going to keep content coming to you guys. So with that said, this is episode 58. It's your boy B, and I'm out.